Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this edition of the platform. On this program, we examine national and international issues, and today we are going to perhaps be more international than we normally are. And our guest on the program today is a former U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas. He's been here for 2 years in his stint as ambassador, but he comes to the Bahamas quite often. A very successful businessman in the Florida area, and I read an address recently where he addressed a number of people on Wall Street, and so he's making an impact all over the United States of America. Ambassador Ned L. Seigel. I want to put the L in there to make sure. Ned L. Seigel, our guest on the program today. Ambassador, nice to have you here today.
Good to be back. Good to be home.
You're home, that's right, because you have so many friends in the Bahamas, and every time you come, you pay us a visit.
Every time I need a good hug.
Yes.
Okay, the Bahamians, as I travel around the world, lead the world in international hugs.
Is that right?
Yes, because the culture of this country is one of really truly giving arms open and caring about each other, being an island nation.
So you accept that we are quite an hospitable people, right?
Yes, that's what makes you very special.
Yes, yes. How's your wife doing, by the way?
She's still kicking my you-know-what.
Okay.
But otherwise, she is fine. Unfortunately, she's not with me on this trip, so she told me I better behave.
Okay. You're here for the weekend of the Susan J. Coleman race. Walk, and the Marathon Bahamas.
Yes.
And she has been very instrumental in the Susan J. Coleman Walk in the U.S., right?
Well, yes, she's on their board, but we're really here because of the Bahamas Breast Cancer Foundation and Initiative, which deals with the clinical trials and testing of Bahamian women relating to the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene, which is the gene behind breast cancer, being that the Bahamian women have such a propensity genetically for breast cancer, and the BBCIF right now plans over the next 4 years to test 2,000 women free of charge. We're doing our fundraising effort. In 2013, we tested 1,800 women, because at the end of the day, by testing that many women, we have enough of the population to look at the genetics and create a protocol that's unique to the Bahamas in detection and education, when they should start, doing their mammograms.
Yes. And
so we're working very, very hard in accomplishing really the epidemic that's here in the Bahamas, because everybody you speak to, one way or another, has been touched by breast cancer.
Yeah. And a lot of Bahamian women are coming forward, eh?
More than ever. There's still challenges ahead of us in education. And the more through corporations and companies, it's really about community. You know that community is so strong here. And by word of mouth and trust and understanding that if you're dealing in people's lives, the greatest pleasure one gets really is saving a life of a mother or a daughter or a sister. And by educating and detecting, that's what our foundation truly is about.
Yeah. It's commendable on your part and the part of your family, your wife in particular, that you would put so much emphasis on this and return after your stint as ambassador here to give service to our people.
Well, if I can share with you, it's more than just that. When I was ambassador and my wife had breast cancer 3 times and finally had her double mastectomy, coming here to healed her spiritually. The ability to touch and reach out by helping others healed herself. She healed herself by helping other Bahamian women, and that's why we set up the foundation. To us, it's a commitment to a country that we love. We fell in love with the Bahamas when we were here. I've always been coming to the Bahamas growing up, but to be able to come and be part of the fabric. Understand, we were received by this country in a way that is unique. I speak to other ambassadors around the world, and they do not have the same experience that we had. So coming back is a love affair, and to be able to have our foundation that is a Bahamian foundation. This isn't Ned and Stephanie's foundation. This is a Bahamian foundation that we may have initiated and founded through the embassy at that time, but we've handed it over to the people of the Bahamas to save lives. So we're just part of a greater purpose, okay, in regarding this foundation.
That's commendable, and you ought to be congratulated.
Wow.
And I'm sure I speak for tens of thousands of Bahamians, and the women in particular, when they say that you are doing a fantastic job, and thank you very much.
My pleasure. I do it for the hugs.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Let's speak generally about where you are today. You are a businessman, aren't you?
Yes.
In Florida.
Always been a businessman. Always been a businessman that viewed economic development wherever I do business as part and parcel of my business. So having a public-private partnership with government goes hand in hand. I don't want government in my business, but I want government to create a fertile foundation for me to allow me to do business so I can grow my business, employ more people, give people a better lifestyle, and government can do that successfully. But not be in my business.
You, as an American, you would know that the American government is in the business of Americans more than anybody else, or more than they should be.
Well,
yes?
I would say yes, more now
Yes?
than ever before, not only in business, but also listening.
Yes. Okay. All right. Listening. And your telephone is ringing as we speak. But, you know, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. And the extent to which the government of the United States of America has been interfering in the private affairs and the private lives of citizens.
It's a very complicated issue because 9/11 created a reaction to America that was unprecedented. Unprecedented even as it relates to Pearl Harbor. Because as a country, we never have been really attacked in the mainland. So when you look at the attack of the World Trade Centers, emotionally, it was truly the first time in modern era that it pervaded everybody's psyche, whether it be now next to malls or subway station, and how President Bush dealt with it at that time, where he wanted everybody to continue on with their lives and not succumb to the terror of the terrorism, created laws that always need checks and balances. So the Patriot Act, the banking laws, the KYC, know your customer laws, the laws that related to weapons of mass destruction, laws that I was involved in regarding shipboarding between America around the world and foreign countries that we felt countries were trading in weapons of mass destruction. It's not to say whether the war in Iraq was a correct war or Afghanistan an incorrect war. We had reactions and didn't know how to deal with it.
But you overreached. Many people say you overreached.
And I think we did. And I would agree with you. I know that's hard for you to believe, but I agree with you. But we didn't overreach because we wanted to overreach. We overreached because we wanted to protect our country. We wanted to make sure that nothing like that ever happened again. And by doing that, we may have overreached without putting in place the correct checks and balances.
Yes, but this overreaction by Americans, this has impacted the fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals around the world. And America itself has created for itself some enemies as a result.
Without question. Without question, Wendell, I think that America's policies as it relates to its allies are measured by how you treat them. And in the past 4 to 6 years, we have lost a lot of good friends or trust that we always had. So I couldn't agree with you more. Our foreign policy right now has tremendous holes in it And there are foreign countries that I know because I still have dialogue and I deal a lot. I have businesses in Israel. I go back to Israel a lot. But also I've been in the Emirates and I've been in Kuwait. And it raises real concerns because America does impact the world. And we have issues in Syria that a red line was drawn and then it was evaporated. We had issues when we took away the missile defense system in '03, excuse me, originally not '03, but in Poland. And now Putin's putting it in. Okay, the first thing President Obama did, I don't know the exact year, was not allow the implementation of the Bush missile defense system that was supposed to go into Poland. That has an effect. Is the agreement with Iran one of true understanding that there is going to be a de-escalation of the uranium, or is it just a ruse? Time will tell. The peace treaty or the peace process to some type of understanding in the Middle East, is that really something that is genuine or just a facade? So how we dealt with Benghazi?
So what are you saying? Are you saying that America has lost some influence in the world? You had the Bush Doctrine, which was in terms of dealing with countries in the Middle East and in Africa. As I said, some nations were offended, but a strong foreign policy. Are you saying that America has lost some influence?
I am saying that unequivocally. The Bush Doctrine. With President Bush, you knew where you stood. There were no qualms about it. Okay, you were either working with us, as he said many times, or you're not working with us.
But America was a stronger country?
It was a stronger country, in its foreign relations.
Yes.
Okay, absolutely. President Bush was committed to Africa, was committed to AIDS in Africa, funded PEPFAR. He was committed to the new independent states that were just becoming part of NATO. He dealt with issues and understood what Russia was, what Putin was and wasn't. When you look at what happened in Syria recently, we looked very weak. You can't have a red line and then Putin come in and take over the vacuum. Our foreign allies today, who are still our allies, are unsure of where we stand now when they come to us on many issues. Israel, which in America, that's always had a strong relationship, have a prime minister and a president that truly dislike each other. They deal with each other, intelligence agencies and the military deal with each other, but the two leaders have a true disdain for one another. That is not healthy.
Yeah, but Mr. Obama wants real democracy in the world.
Well, I'm going to be the moderator now. No, you tell me what. No, I want you to tell me what real democracy is.
He wants one man, one vote. He wants self-determination on the part of nations in the Middle East and elsewhere, as opposed to the Bush Doctrine, where you believe that America should be the world policeman.
I think you're
and America should be up in your face and interfering in the internal affairs of many countries in the Middle East.
So I think you're totally misinformed, respectfully.
No, I'm not.
Because that's not what the Bush Doctrine was.
The Bush Doctrine,
Let me tell you what the Bush Doctrine was.
The Bush Doctrine, Ambassador, has done more damage to America and the perception of America as a world policeman than anything else.
So if I can now respond.
Yes.
I will share with you why I think you are misinformed specifically.
Go ahead.
Because the Bush Doctrine, in its fallacies and strength, were about giving every country that wanted support of America to be, quote, especially with the neoconservatives, to have a one-man, one-vote democracy within the country. They wanted to have elections and supported elections all over the world. America did not want to control because that's not our model. The Chinese have a very different model of foreign policy than America does. And Americans' foreign policy is to promote economic development around the world, to allow our companies and corporations to build enterprises with the local countries so people could live better. The Bush Doctrine was about having free elections throughout the world, absent dictators, absent government that controlled their people. Very different than what you just said.
Mr. Obama went to Egypt and addressed Egyptians in a university, at the University of Cairo, I think it was. And he said that democracy is not about having elections, but what happens between elections. After that speech, we had the Arab Spring, when a number of countries in that part of the world saw people in the streets demonstrating for real democracy. Indeed, Egypt had not had an election in ever. Egypt this week has an election over its constitution. It had 2 elections, I believe, after Mr. Mubarak left office. This couldn't happen, or this didn't happen during the Bush administration. It happened in the Obama administration. Yes?
No. Again, your facts are a little misguided.
Egypt had an election during the Bush administration?
You want to understand Egypt?
Or during any Republican administration?
Let me explain to you Egypt, because I spend a lot of time in the Middle East.
Let's talk about the elections.
I am going to talk about the election, but the election, you can't take the election and say what you just said as an abstract thought. The election is a process of a lot of things that have come before it. When President Obama gave that speech, okay, and in how he did it, he ignited, in some ways, a tinderbox that was waiting to happen. Because if you understand Cairo, and you understand Egypt, and you understand the politics of Egypt, it was a very repressive country. And if you understood our foreign policy and the amount of time we have spent through our State Department in setting up their judicial system, working with Egypt to become more of a democracy, okay, without a revolution or uprising, because you know the big thing was, is this a revolution? Do we still bring funds to it, or don't we bring funds to it? Yeah. It's a coup d'etat. But what happened was, President Obama, as bright as he is, because he's a very smart man and very strategic, and we all acknowledge that, is very naive in the world of foreign policy. He doesn't understand transformational foreign policy or cause and effect. Because you see, the uprising had nothing to do with politics or Obama's speech. You know what it had to do with? It had to do with social networking of an age group of 18 to 35-year-olds that can't be fed, that can't be clothed, that can't have housing, that don't have an education, they can't dream, and they have no hope. And that they've seen their parents' lives get worse. Yeah, and they've seen, let me finish my thought, I didn't interrupt you. Yes. And they saw their grandparents go into a different type of poverty so that the younger generation had enough.
Yeah, but the Arab Spring didn't begin in Egypt.
Oh, you and I disagree. The Arab Spring was ignited and started from the square in Egypt. Absolutely.
From the square in Egypt, it started in another country where a young man was selling fruits, and he was stopped, or police tried to stop him, and he caught himself afire. That is where it started. And it went from one Arab country to the next.
Well, you and I have a disagreement, because that may have been an occurrence, but it was President Obama's speech in Cairo that resonated through the whole Arab countries, all of them. Because if you go back and listen to that speech, in many ways, it gave permission to overthrow existing governments.
Tunisia had nothing to do with it?
But excuse me, every country is unique. You can't generalize. When you look at Tunisia, Libya, okay, yes, Yemen, Qatar, Okay, some were successful, some weren't. Saudi Arabia would have had one. But it depended upon how the government dealt with what they thought was a potential tinderbox to their government.
As a Republican, you really believe that America ought to be meddlesome. You ought to be involved in
Your question, is insulting.
No, well, fine.
No, your
well,
question's insulting.
I doubt it. I don't
America
think so.
doesn't believe in meddlesome. We don't meddle. You know,
America is not meddlesome?
No.
In international relations, in the affairs of other countries?
Excuse me. You said something.
You really believe our listeners and viewers believe that?
You said something to me,
Yes.
okay, that we go out to be meddlesome. America's intent is to be meddlesome.
No, you believe that
Okay,
your
and I
interest,
denied that.
You believe that your interest,
well,
the American
I'm correcting
No,
you.
you really do believe that your interest, the American foreign interest, is protected when you are meddlesome.
No. We are not colonialists. We've never been colonialist, and that is not our foundation or DNA.
No, it's imperialist, not colonialist.
You don't believe that. You believe that?
I do believe in American
you can look
imperialism.
me in the eye. You can look me in the eye and say America is like China imperialism, because China is not longer imperialistic. They're capitalistic. China is probably the most capitalistic country in the world today.
Yes.
So America's form of government, by the way, is not democracy. What's so interesting is I go around America and I ask the youth today what form of government we have, and you know how many people say democracy? That's not our form of government. What's our form of government? Do you know?
You know,
what's our form of government?
You call yourself a capitalistic society.
No,
and you call yourself a democracy.
But that's not the form of government.
What is your form of government?
Federalism.
Well,
we are federalists. And what we do is,
yes, but you
our
can
Constitution.
You can have federalism in a democracy and federalism in a capitalistic society.
Can you have democracy in a communist society?
No.
Can you have capitalist in a communist society?
No,
can you have, you know, the lines are very blurred these days. You're saying things that no longer exist because we truly have a global economy. And because we have a global economy, the boundaries that used to exist no longer exist in foreign diplomacy.
Right.
Okay. So that's not meddlesome. That is reaching out and providing assets to other countries that we have that those countries embrace.
You know, Mr. Ambassador, when America under President George W. Bush went to Iraq and did what it did in Iraq, and there was absolutely no evidence of weapon of mass destruction, you do not call that American imperialism? That is what it was. You brought the full weight of the government of the United States and destroyed half of a country. Yes? That is imperialism.
I would not put it in those terms. You see, it's very easy to have.
Your Congress.
You asked
your
me.
Congress. No, I'm making a statement.
No, but you asked. So you're not. So you're not asking me a question.
No. I'm making a statement.
All right. So I'll let you finish your statement.
You can respond to the statement.
Okay.
Yes. There are many members of your Congress who voted against the invasion of Iraq, and the mere fact that you invaded Iraq, to me, is American imperialism. Now you can respond to that.
I have no comment because I'm not going to change your mind and have you understand.
No, disabuse me of that, that notion.
No, there's no way that I can, so let's go on
well,
to the next.
Fix my listener and viewers. Tell them, show them how I'm wrong.
So you really don't believe that, but you want me to elicit.
No. I believe that in all of my heart, but I want you to tell my listeners how I am wrong. That your invasion of Iraq was not American imperialism.
Foreign diplomacy is not right or wrong. It's not black or white. Foreign diplomacy and decisions in foreign relations is a weighing, an understanding of relationships with the country that you're involved with. So that no one really knows, because there were other potential beliefs at the time incorrectly, as we now know, okay, that precipitated certain decisions. So at the end of the day, the policy may have been wrong based upon assumptions or facts that came from intelligence that weren't so. And you're painting a country to be imperialistic based upon a situation that goes back to what we started with in this program.
No,
You gotta let me finish now.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I want to make a point, and I try never to interrupt the
Okay,
host.
go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The reality is that we overreacted.
Yeah.
You asked me early on, do I think in a foreign policy nature to 9/11 did we overreact? And what was my answer?
Yes.
Okay. And part of the overreaction was invading Iraq. And that was, to a large degree, to take out a network, not only here, but in Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda. There were more than meets the eye. And the truth of the matter is, in hindsight, it could have been done very differently. You know, I often say to people, Osama bin Laden won. He won. Because who we are today and how we have reacted to that bombing changed not only America, the fabric of homeland security, but the world. And had we maybe had the wisdom and the depth of experience to breathe first, to not react so quickly, to understand all the ramifications of our actions as a superpower, things may be different. But you can't second guess people who have a population of billions of people and have to make sure that we don't have bombings in a mall like there was recently, okay, or trains in Spain being blown up, because you've had attacks all over the world where there have been soft point entries and not in America. There had, during the Bush administration, without going into detail, other plots that were stopped, that were literally planned.
Mr. Ambassador,
you know, when I was here in the Bahamas,
yes.
I just want to say one thing, which
Yes.
is really interesting. I had to work with the shipping lines and with the Bahamian government because there wasn't adequate protection against the cruise liners that come in the port and the security. And we worked very hard, people don't know this, to secure those ships that were the size of the World Trade Center. Let's assume, because Bahamas is a soft target. I mean, I had bodyguards. Who thinks an ambassador needs bodyguards in the Bahamas? It was almost sometimes embarrassing, right? Why do I'm trying to meet with the people and I got my bodyguards. I don't want my bodyguards. Well, Chris Stevens felt that way, and look what happened to him. We spent tremendous amount of time in the Bahamas protecting the cruise liners because anybody could go beneath the water, set explosives to the hull, and blow them up and put them on timing.
Mr. Ambassador, the United States of America has dictated world travel. The United States of America is dictating world commerce. I can't travel to the United States of America unless I take off my shoes and my belt, and I can't open a bank account in my own country unless I comply and comport with what the policy of your state, of your country is.
You're really not saying that, are you?
Let me say something.
Because
Can I say something?
I'm surprised you're saying that.
Can I say something?
You're blaming America for that?
No, no, no. I'm saying your policy.
It's not our
American
policies.
foreign policy. American, the Homeland Security.
Wendell.
Homeland Security has dictated policy of the governments of this region, of the Western Hemisphere.
Wendell?
There's no question about that.
Wendell?
Yes.
You and I need to go off air and have a drink.
No.
Because
I don't need no drink off air. We want to talk now.
I'm going to tell you why.
No.
Because
no.
the
I
banking-
was talking
the
to
banking-
you just now about American imperialism and overreaching.
I'm going to explain to you.
Okay?
And I appreciate...
And I insist that you have overreached,
Okay.
and you have negatively impacted the governance of many countries of the world.
So this makes for good television because we're animated and we both believe our beliefs.
Yes,
But let me give you, again, a different point of view,
yes.
because no one's right or wrong.
Mm.
The Bahamas, in and of itself, had its own issues to its own banking laws. And, wait, let me just finish. Don't give me that look. The Bahamas wanted, we can't change the laws of the Bahamas. The United States didn't come in and pass the laws in your parliament. Your governance passed the laws in your government. We didn't pass the banking laws. There were new laws here because politically, there was concern that there were banks here doing money laundering. It was in the papers. I'm not making this
There's
up.
more money laundering going on in the United States of America, in New York and Louisiana than any other place in the world.
We're one of the few countries that has a law that has a foreign...
There is more money laundering going on in Louisiana, the United and
we
New
have-
York
and we-
than any place in the world. But you,
And we
because
have-
of the
You
heavy
don't let-
stick.
you don't let your
no,
guests finish.
No, we're not. No, you are Bahamian. You are right with us. Because of the heavy stick.
I take that as an ultimate compliment.
Absolutely. The heavy stick that you've been wielding over the years, that you have made it difficult for countries in the Western Hemisphere to do business as they ought to. Let me tell you something.
No,
there was a man named Mr. Larry Sumner
You got to let me...
who was involved in blacklisting the Bahamas. And America participated in the blacklisting of the Bahamas as a financial center because you were overreaching.
You let me know when I can respond?
Right now.
Okay, thank you.
Respond to that.
There are times when we do protect our self-interest and we do overreach, as any government would. But when you travel and you threw out a lot of things, and I don't have enough time to answer everything, but I will tell you...
I'm not finished.
If you go to, you're never finished. When you go to Germany, or you go to Denmark, or you go to the Emirates, every other country, mostly, okay, makes you take off your shoes. America is not the only country that takes off your shoes. And America, as powerful and as much credit as you give America, can't make people do things, or legislators do everything that they want, unless that country doesn't want something back from America. Because you see, relationships, whether it is with you and I as friends, even though we don't agree on anything together, or we are businesses or governments, it is the compromise of ideas that truly should allow us to work together. It should not be dictatorial or imperialism that I'm going to make you do this or I'm not giving you that. I think if you really look at the tradition of foreign policy of America, as much as you may have as much upset and disdain for Bush and not for Obama, okay? The reality is it goes beyond Republican and Democrat. It goes beyond people's relationships and understanding respect and dealing fairly with each other so both of them are inclusive and winners. That's what good foreign policy is.
Mr. Ambassador, what is American exceptionalism, in your view?
It is, and I want to phrase this very carefully because I know you will key on every word. It's the opportunity in a system by our Constitution that allows an individual to create his own destiny. If you're in India, you don't have that opportunity. If you're in Europe, you don't have that opportunity. America exceptionalism isn't going to the world and saying, hey, I'm better, look at me, I'm American. What it is it brings in foreign students and educates them, and most of them go back home. It's about allowing people to meet their potential. You know, young people. I didn't finish.
Why don't you?
I didn't finish the
allow,
question.
Why don't you allow the
Did I
Cubans?
finish?
Why don't you allow the Cubans to meet their potential? Why don't you?
Wendell.
No, hold on.
You got to let me finish my answer.
No. Why don't you lift the embargo on Cuba and allow the Cuban people to meet their full potential? Why would Americans be so upset that at Mr. Mandela's funeral that Obama would shake the hand of Raul Castro? If you're not meddlesome, and if you really want people to meet their full potential.
You want an answer?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know when you're finished with the question.
Right now, finish just now.
It's a
Answer that.
It's a failed policy.
It's a failed policy. You believe that the embargo should be
When
lifted?
when I was here,
You
excuse
should,
me, when
do you believe
no,
the embargo
let
should be lifted?
excuse me, I'm not in a court of law where I have to answer yes or no, so let me answer the question.
Okay.
When I was here, I did shake the ambassador's, the Cuban ambassador's hand when I was an ambassador here. I even sat next to him. And it drove my State Department crazy, okay? Because you don't, it's about communication. You don't solve, the truth of the matter is, if we hadn't had an embargo and we let goods into Cuba, in spite of the Cuban community in Miami and the political pressure and the Bay of Pigs, it was all a failed policy, in my personal opinion. I'm not speaking as a diplomat, okay? I think that Obama's reaching out is a good one. However, it's what you do with it afterwards. You can reach out to every controversial past country we may have had a conflict with, okay? Iran's the perfect example. So we now have a proliferation treaty. Let's see really what happens. I personally believe that President Obama has wonderful intentions, but is naive totally in how to go about negotiating and having long-term relationships, so that, like Russia and Syria or the missile defense system, at the end of the day, the balance of power of the world works against the free world.
But there are people in your party, the Republican Party, who have great difficulty. The majority in your Congress who are Republicans have great difficulty with the Iranian policy, with the American policy vis-a-vis Iran.
And I will tell you, so do many, many Democrats. And if you notice from Senator Menendez, who is against Obama's policy, I could give you a list equally of Democrats who don't trust what President Obama did. You look that up, because that's the truth. That undermines exactly what you're saying.
Mr. Ambassador, I follow American foreign policy, and the vast majority of Republicans in the United States
You just ignored what
America,
I said. What about Senator Menendez, who's the head of the Foreign Relations Committee, and put forward a bill to continue the sanctions? Do you respond? How do you respond to that?
What is wrong with that?
What was wrong with increasing the sanctions?
What is wrong with a Democrat being opposed to something that Mr. Obama
You only
has done?
mentioned Republicans. I'm sharing with you on that issue was bipartisan.
You have a difficulty with the policy with respect to Iran.
I think that it is correct. I have the way it was done and how it was done was a concern, because it wasn't done, okay, through proper channels and in ways that honest brokering happened, in my opinion.
Do you believe that Iran should have the right to develop nuclear energy?
Yes.
Peaceful purposes?
Yes.
That's all they're saying.
No, they're not. And you too are naive, because being
That's all they're saying.
And
but you believe that they want to enrich the uranium to attack Israel.
I didn't say attack Israel. You don't put words in my mouth. Whenever I come here, you love to put words in my mouth. They want to be the new Saudi Arabia. They're not going to attack Israel. They may threaten to attack Israel, but they're trying to change the balance of power in the Middle East by having nuclear weapons.
Okay. We haven't had a break on this program, and we're almost out of time, so let's take a break here. Okay. We are speaking with Ambassador Ned L. Seigel today, who is a great friend of the Bahamas. We'll come right back.